podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today we've reached the end of the month. It is Reads and Recovery Book Review Day. And I will be talking about the book Educated, a Memoir by Tara Westover. I'm telling you, this is a good book. I don't care who you are. It's a good book. So full disclosure, I have 1 hour left to listen to. But I'm going to review it anyway. And I will be listening to it after the podcast. So my apologies, but it might be kind of fun to do a book review before I've finished it. I don't know. We'll see. We're just going to go anyway. So, Reads and Recovery, for those of you who are not familiar, once a month we have a book of the month, and it's usually something to do with stroke recovery, alcoholism recovery. But this month we are stretching our wings a little bit. I wanted to pick a book that is a little different, but is inspirational, talks about resilience and self-discovery, and that's exactly what this book was for me. So we'll go ahead and talk about it a little bit. So Educated, again, it's Educated, a memoir by Tara Westover. So Tara grew up in a strict and abusive household in rural Idaho. Side note, rural is one of my least favorite words in the world. It never was until I had a discussion with a friend and he pointed out the word rural, and I've never liked it ever since then. So rural Idaho is where they grew up, and she was raised by survivalist parents who opposed public education, and everything else. It seems like they were opposed to government, hospitals, doctors, vaccines. I mean, you name it. Tara didn't set foot in a classroom until she was 17 years old. And it's quite moving what happens from that point on. So her journey from an uneducated child to Cambridge is remarkable. And it really, to me, shows the capabilities that we have within us that we don't even know, through sheer determination. She defied her family's expectations, her own expectations, her own dreams, and broke free from the restrictive beliefs of how she was raised and what she knew was to be true. It's really, I can't say enough about how impressive it is to me to be raised in a way that you are told these things to be true. And until you're 17, I mean, you're an adult, really. And then you're able to get out there and start learning the reality of the world, and to not run back home and hide is quite inspiring. Although she did want to and did run home and hide a couple times, but it's just fascinating to me. So for those of us in recovery from alcoholism or stroke or both, I'm not sure if there's one person I know who had a stroke and is in recovery. who's in my sobriety network. And I don't know if she listens or not. If you do, you know who you are, and I miss you and love you. But for those of us in recovery, Tara, the author's story, is, I think, a reminder of the amount of resilience that we're capable of. And Tara was faced with this, with physical, emotional, and psychological challenges, but she persevered, you know. Um, Her story teaches us that no matter how insurmountable our circumstances may seem, there is a way to overcome them. Resilience is not about never making a mistake. And I talked about that yesterday. You know, it's better to do and make a mistake than to not do at all. So, uh, failing is an opportunity to get back up. And this lesson is is particularly poignant for people in recovery, because man, does it feel like a series of just falls and trips and getting back up and rising again, crumbling, and then putting ourselves back together. Um, so Tara's journey talks also about redefining oneself. So for years, her her identity was shaped by her family's um, ideology, religious beliefs, and her identity had this cage around it. In my mind, that's what it seemed like. That's my perception of it. However, she pursued an education. Um, it's like yeah, I don't know. I was going to say pick the lock, but I don't think she did quite yet. When she went to pursue her education originally, um, she was, I think, walking out in the yard, you know, lifting weights, training herself. Um, and then over time, as she grew in uh, in in intelligence, grew in knowledge of the world around her, she began to be able to look at herself and consider redefining herself. And this is a lesson for us in recovery, because when I when I got sober, it it wasn't until I was around other people like me that I was able to start walking the yard, you know, like lifting weights, practicing the program, and look inward and see, here are some muscles I can start building. And the same thing happened in stroke recovery. I have spent the better part of this year going to a psychiatrist because I was in the cage and I was not willing to walk the yard. I didn't even know how. I didn't even know what muscles to build. I was so lost and feeling hopeless that the life that I thought I was going to have, I wasn't going to have. And this is what Tara struggles with, I think. is this idea where she was from is that women play a role and men play a role. One thing she says is that the men are the ones that call everyone together, and the women are one of those that are called, you know? um, and so as she became more educated, she started to see that. And at first, she thought that there was something wrong with her because she didn't want the life of a woman. She didn't want to be one of the ones that was called. She wanted to have a voice of her own. Um, and she began to see that there are muscles that she can build, things that she was interested in, that there's opportunity there to build it. And she didn't know that. Um, and that's how I was feeling this year in stroke recovery, trying to figure out what is wrong with me, going to doctors, trying to figure out, how do I live my life this way? What are the muscles I need to work on to surface joy in this Rachel version 3.0? And it's like, as Tara felt like her past defined her, it's really part of her story. And she had the power to redefine herself. And that is the same for us in recovery. The past does not define us. As alcoholics, active alcoholics, that past that we had does not define who I am. It's just the beginning of my story. Really, it's the beginning of my story, part one. um, and then going through the stroke and now having these limited capabilities as far as vision and what I can withstand, as far as movement and these types of things, lighting and all of that stuff. Um, I don't want that physical inhibition, physical disability to define me. Um, I have the power to redefine myself again. And really, I'm not redefining myself. I am, I think, blooming even more than how I had begun to bloom when I got sober. So, whether you're recovering from alcoholism, a stroke, or any other life altering event, this journey of self redefinition is always available to us. It's there. Sometimes we need professional help to see it. Sometimes we need professional help to talk about some of the things that are blocking us from reaching it, some of the fears and the anger, and the uncertainties. And but once we're able to talk about it, keep coming back, keep showing up for life, keep waking up in the morning. I woke up this morning and I was happy. I woke up this morning and I was looking forward to what I was going to do today. And that's what I used to feel like when I was working. I would wake up, as soon as I opened my eyes, I would think about what project I'm going to work on today for work. And I'm probably not, probably not a lot. I was going to say I'm unique. I'm not unique. not everybody wakes up thinking about what they're going to do for work that day, you know, but some people do. I did because I loved my job. I loved being creative. And today I woke up and this has been the past few days. I woke up and thought, what are my projects I'm going to work on today? And I did work on a couple projects. Um, this I told my psychiatrist, so my psychiatrist and I have decided to temporarily separate to divorce. It's a positive thing. I've been feeling really good. I'm so excited about being approved for Social Security disability that relieved a lot of the stress that I was feeling, the uncertainty that I was feeling about just being financially stable and understanding like what my future is going to look like. It's just, I'm able to breathe. And with having been waking up and feeling good, we had about 3 weeks that my psychiatrist went on vacation. So we were just kind of feeling what it's like for me to not see her once a week. And I've been feeling consistently well. I've been consistently practicing the things that we talked about. So I'm going to call her if I need her, but right now we're going to take a break, you know? And it's been nice. You know, I don't know where I was going with that, but I'm sure I had a point. And you probably heard the point, but I have forgotten what the point was. So we're going to move on. Another significant theme of the book, Educated, is finding your own way. And this coincidentally was our reading in my morning meeting this morning, finding your own way. So Tara's pursuit of education was her way of finding freedom within herself and later freedom from her family, which in the beginning, it sounds like she didn't know she needed. She didn't really know that the abuse that she was in was wrong, it seems like. And from what I understand, that is something similar to other people that are in abusive relationships. But this education she pursued was her way of forging her own path and making a new life for herself. And in recovery, it's essential for us as well to find our own way, what works for us individually. The path to and through recovery is not the same for all of us. We we explore, we adapt, and we find our way, our unique way to heal and grow. Our story is is going to be a unique one, you know? I say a lot of times we're not unique. And what I mean by that is we as human beings have similar emotions and all of these things, but our experiences are unique, are very much unique. And we get to figure that out, you know, find our own path through recovery. And that is what Tara does. And it's amazing how she ends up at these universities and gosh, in the beginning, she's just like just a fish out of water, you know, where she was in her very strict household. They did not let any of their skin show, like didn't even push their sleeves up over their elbows, like to expose her forearm. So when she showed up to college, she really struggled with the fact that these women the same age as her were wearing skirts or wearing short sleeves or a tank top or something like that. Um, One of the most impactful aspects of Tara's memoir is, for me, her willingness to share it. By doing so, she is able to find healing for herself, but also is able to offer hope to others because I think that she knows that she's not unique. She's not the only one who was raised like that. And it's her story, although unique, there are probably lots of pieces of her story that we can all relate to. And that's certainly true for me as well. Um, it She talks about how she journals a lot. And sometimes, like the stuff that she was holding on to, the pain, she wouldn't write about it either. She wouldn't write about it. But when she finally started writing about it, that's when she started to feel the healing. And that's what happens in recovery and sobriety as well. And that's what's happened to me in over this past year in stroke recovery too, is I have found so much healing in sharing my story. Um, it also, from what I hear, has been inspiring others who are going through similar struggles or any struggles. I had somebody yesterday who was going through something completely unrelated to what I'm going through. And she said, "But Rachel, I think of you and I think all I have to do is just keep walking." And I was like, speechless. I couldn't even say anything because I thought, wow, that's what I want. I want to be able to share my story. And even if it's unrelated to what you're going through, it's an example of how we just keep walking forward. You turn off your wanter and you just put on your shoes and go to the meeting, go to the Saturday morning meeting at 10 a.m., whether you want to or not. That's where it all started for me. That was the beginning of me turning off my wanter and just doing it. But Tara, like her courage to share that story, share her truth, is just a reminder that all of our stories matter. All of our stories, if we can share them, can make a difference in somebody else's life. I heard something this morning. Somebody said, "Don't let others' opinions of me affect my opinion of me." And I was thinking about the book because despite Tara's family's harsh judgments and disbelief of her capabilities, she kept going. Now, she was at, gosh, a couple of her colleges, and she never believed in herself. And she would have these professors be like, "You can do it. Like, you should apply. You should apply." And she's like, just never imagined that she was any good. Like, it's the damaging side of being humble. It was self-pity. She was on that side of the spectrum that I was talking about yesterday. And regardless of it, somehow she kept looking inward and being able to find willingness. And for those of us in recovery, it's important to remember that our worth is not defined by others' opinions. There are some of us who don't have, everybody around us is not always supportive of us getting sober and maintaining our sobriety. And there are lots of reasons why. Some people, because they have a problem and they don't want to look at themselves and they have fear that they don't want to look at themselves. Sometimes they don't want us to get sober because it will create a gap between you and that person, because you might be a different person after you get sober. There are people who say, "Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it." That's the worst. That's the absolute freaking worst, is when you're trying to get sober, you keep tripping, maybe you're relapsing, and somebody says to you, and it's usually somebody who you need to believe in you, and they say, "I believe it. I'll believe it when I see it." And that's when we need to cultivate self-belief and confidence in our path and the way that we're going to do it. And that's hard, especially when you're very sick. And when I was listening to this book and I was listening to Tara having these professors try to convince her how capable she is, and her looking inward and being like, nope. You know, the more encouragement they gave her, the more she ran away. She would literally get up and run away if she was complimented too much, because it didn't feel good. It scared her. And I lost my train of thought because that's what happens, because I don't have all of this written down. I'm sure that you're picking up on that and where I was going with that. So I'm going to move on. So, in conclusion, sorry about this, but it happens. You're listening to a podcast from somebody who had a stroke, and that's what happens. So, the book, we'll wrap it up. Educated, a memoir by Tara Westover, is a book of resilience. It's a book of self-redefinition. And it's a book about finding your own way. And it teaches us the importance of sharing our stories with each other, not letting others' opinions define us. I really, like I said, I have one more hour left, and that's what I'm gonna do now for the next hour. But I really, really enjoyed it. I think that I went for a book that was not directly related to recovery, but I think I'm gonna pat myself on the back and say I knocked it out of the park this time, because although it was not recovery from one of these illnesses, and one of these, stroke, alcoholism, she was recovering from an invisible illness as well. I mean, in my opinion, she was damaged and it was invisible. And that's why these people kept trying to convince her, "You're capable." And she didn't believe that she was, because she was damaged. She was damaged on the inside. And that is so difficult to mend. But she found a way, and she, quite honestly, I think is brilliant. I really, really enjoyed the book. So Hopefully you got to read it. If you didn't, put it on your list. One more time, it's Educated, a memoir by Tara Westover. Thanks for listening today to the Recovery Daily podcast. I will talk to you tomorrow.